Paul. All right, sorry for not pressing record at the beginning. We have opened tonight's meeting of the Capital Planning Committee of November 7th, 2022. I have read the preamble about how to join. For those people, the Reader's Digest version is tonight's webinar ID for the meeting on Zoom. Let me just pull it up again. Is 766-316-7607. Okay, so the call to order. Do we have any public comment this evening from the Capital Planning Committee members? See none. Do we have any public comment from the public? Also seeing none. Tonight's presentation is by the facilities director, who we have seated at my right, which you will see when he speaks. Paul, if you want to introduce yourself and while you introduce yourself, I will get started on sharing the document, the presentation that we're doing. So that will provide some time while you tell everybody who you are.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you allowing me to do this presentation for everyone for our capital plan fiscal year 2024 for facilities, parks, and recreation. My name is Paul Visconti, and I believe this is my 10th week or 11th week with the town. So it's nice to see all of you again. If I've had the pleasure to meet you, and if I haven't, it's nice to have met you in person.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard. You're deeply tenured already. So let me pull up your plan and share that. And you just tell me when you're going on to the next slide.
Sure. As I stated, this is the capital plan for fiscal year 2024 for Lunenburg Parks, Facilities, and Recreation in no particular order. Of course, we have Facilities, Parks, and Recreation first. Flows nicely. Presented to the Capital Planning Committee. I'm ready for the next slide. So fiscal year 2022 approved capital projects. And I think that this is tells a lot to the committee and to the town and anybody watching. There's several projects here that are at least underway. And if they're not underway, they will be underway shortly. So public safety building, the chiller replacement. The installation, I would say, is probably 50% done. A lot of the hardware is installed. There's some logistic things working with the vendor and the architect and sort of working through the logistics of that project, but it is in place. The front end software and the back end software still needs some tweaking, but it's in place and underway. And I expect that fully operational hopefully by middle to end of this month. The Ritter building, ADA ramp, and the verdicts, we're in ongoing conversations with the APDC to try to get some movement on that. I think we made some headway with presentation and getting some insight provided to the committee. Of course, they want more information. We're happy to provide that as much as we can based on the comparison between the replacement windows and the cost of doing renovating the existing windows, which in my opinion is quite extensive. And I think that the quote presented by the approved state vendor does bear that out. Town hall verdicts. That's a IFB that's going to be ready to go for spring. Public safety building, we're going to replace the first floor carpeting on both sides of the public safety building. When I say the first floor, we're doing the common area space, the chief's office, the training room, lieutenant's room, both captain's offices, and the fire chief's office as well. Those will be carpet squares. They actually came in quite a bit under budget. Approximately $23,000, and that vendor is a prime vendor, also off Combis, very reputable vendor, and it's a good product. It should last for many, many years, and also give us the exchangeability of having carpet squares, right? So if somebody spills something or something does happen, you don't have to pull up a whole floor. You can sort of take little beats and pieces of the apple. Marshall Park master plan. That's a big conceptual design project. Everybody in the room is certainly well aware of what's going on with that. I think we've made a lot of good progress with that. The Parks Commission has been instrumental in helping move that forward and come up with great ideas and vendors to support that project. We've also reached out to WOLA to do some updated engineering and design costs and completing the schematic design phase, which I think will help when we bring this project coming back full circle to actually get some drilled down engineering costs because the cost of everything and you know, it's a multiple phase project. So looking at the phases, that's really going to be important, not only for what we can afford as a town, but getting the usability and getting the most return on investment for everybody right away, because you know, everybody wants to see the park being used and we want to see it renovated. And making sure it's a nice seamless project. So hopefully it continues to go smooth. Ready for the next slide.
One question, this says FY 2022, but this was actually FY 2020, this was just approved this spring, right? It was last year?
Mhm.
I just want to make sure I'm not
Took
losing
place,
something.
they hired WOLA.
Yep.
And it took place over
Over
the
the course
last
of the year.
fiscal
I
year.
just want to make sure, I'm not- okay, there we go. I could have waited till the next slide, sorry.
We had to answer questions.
By saying just wait till the next slide.
So fiscal year 2023 approved capital projects. Senior center HVAC upgrades, we're gonna do a draft for this for invitation for bid, prepared with the scope of work set for January bid. And I'm gonna come back to a couple of these, so I'm just gonna gloss over these real quick. Town repairs, the verdicts, IFB prepared with the scope of work for January. Marshall Park survey, the bid was awarded to Dillis and Roy for wetlands and land survey. It came in under bid scope, which was great. Plus they're a nice local vendor. Senior center roof verdicts, repair is already scheduled for this week, actually. They're gonna come out Thursday. They wanted to come out last week, but we had a parking lot project going on down there. And that bid came in way under by Gibson Roof, great vendor, state certified vendor. You'll hear me say the word state certified vendor quite a bit. I think it's really important that for projects that I'm involved with anywhere, I'm gonna recommend most of the vendors, if not all, will be a Combi state certified vendor. I think it just puts a lot of credibility to the vendor that they've sort of had to go through the vetting process. And they're also very vetted in doing work with state municipalities and best business practices. Senior center patio project, outdoor patio recreation space. This is going to go out for spring bid. So meaning we'll do the bid for January and it should go out so we can start as soon as the weather breaks, hopefully in March. So there are a couple things with this. The soil needed to be tested to make sure it came back free of contaminants, which it did, which was great. McCarthy has been great to work with. And they're also doing a design and construction phase estimate of the costs, because some of the things that Sue wanted to get in there, which I think are very important, vital to the project. We want to make sure that we have enough money and that we take as big a bite of the apple as we can within this phase. And Lara Green and Brian from McCarty have been great. They've come down and met with Sue and I on several occasions. They provided updated schematics to us the other day. And Lara's working on the cost projections for that now. So hopefully we can get as much accomplished in the first phase as possible. Old primary verdicts, hazardous materials abatement. The draft is prepared and it's complete, and that's ready to go out for bid in January. So hopefully start spring in the spring. Again, we've had a great design architect to work with that, help us through the process. The soil around the building came back clean, which is very helpful with that. And that's going to go up through bid docs, which I think would be very advantageous for the town. They're going to proofread everything, make sure everything's as tight as it possibly can be. And we're hopefully going to get the best vendor possible to bid on that work, to take on the entire scope of work, so we don't have to call anybody back or deal with third-party vendors.
Excuse me, Paul.
Go ahead.
Old Primary, is that the building back here? or is that-
Yes,
Okay,
right over here, behind the radar.
okay.
So this is the request and the order that I think makes the most sense for priority, and we can go through it really quick. Obviously, public safety building roof and gutter repairs. They have public safety, Marshall Park Engineering, the senior center parking lot. Town beach treatment, McNally Park Design. The Ritter interior painting, which is mentioned in the verdicts. The Ritter flooring. The TCP hazardous materials testing. TCP info system because it's fire safety. TCP plumbing upgrade with the backflow preventer. And the TCP sidewalk repairs. And then last 12 through 15 is the Brooks House. So you have the exterior doors, the porch, the fire escape, the roof, the gutters, the windows. And there's some ancillary work with the sashes and sills around with that too. So that would be all for 2024, which is about $834,000, I believe is the number. No, not 835,000. So I know it's a lot of money, it's a lot of work. So it's sort of broken down here, you can see highlighted for all the tasks and the total. Again, Brooks House. I think that it's a building that we're gonna have to come to a resolution of what we want to do with the building and how we're gonna maintain it going forward. In my opinion, this is just the tip of the iceberg to do some work on it, not to mention that I think we could all probably agree from a tour down there and speaking with some vendors. Once we start doing some of these repairs, it's gonna probably cost other repairs on top of that. So you start opening up doors and windows, roofs and gutters. There's gonna be water infiltration, insect infiltration. I'm sure there's mold, house hair plaster. We have some issues going on in the basement. So those are all things that you obviously have some value to them. These are the priority items that was mentioned in the vertex. I think it would be good to have a direction collectively what we see this building's useful life going to be in the future and how we want to deal with it collectively will give us a good idea of how to spend the money. But that would be the immediate cost to repair those. Also, you have the public safety building, the roof and gutter repair, which is mentioned in the verdicts. There's some pictures in the presentation, which we'll get to. A lot of the things that we'll be talking about, or I'll be talking about to the committee tonight, will be just preventative maintenance, the lack of preventative maintenance, and that spending the money sort of upfront will negate more expensive costs and extend the usable life of all of our buildings, but particularly our important buildings. And all of our buildings are important, right? But what I put a priority on as a facilities director is life safety, and where we have people working in forward-facing buildings. So public safety building, parks. So Town Beach. We're taking a look at having Solitude Lake Management come out. They've already done a test of the water quality to address the weed infiltration down at the beaches. Beach is a big draw for the town, certainly a moneymaker. It's one of the things I think that the town's definitely known for. And they have a couple good solutions for us. One of them is a mechanical solution called hydro raking. It goes in and basically takes the weeds out. And then there's a second part of that, which is the chemical treatment of it. So you can't do one really without the other. It was explained to me, if you hydro rake and you don't chemical treat, then you're just going to get more and thicker vegetation on the bottom that's going to come back. And if you chemical treat, all the debris and everything that's sort of killed off by the corrosive material, it's going to fall to the bottom. It's actually going to shrink the amount of water in the beachfront. It makes sense. They're a very reputable company. They do a lot of work now with Hickory Hills. So we're waiting back on that. And then hopefully in the future, if we're successful with that, there was some talk about doing Marshall Pond, which is in my next few years projection, which I think was brought up by our Parks Commission chairperson, Anna Lockwood, which I think makes a lot of sense if you look at all the lily pad invasion on that pond. I was quite shocked when I went there, and I think the guys from Solitude were quite shocked too. They couldn't believe how much is there, but they definitely have treatments for it, and I think it has a lot of value for the town. That's why it's included. We have McNally Park Design and Marshall Park Engineering, which we talked about Marshall Park and McNally Park. I think our parks give us a lot of, forward facing the community, serving the community, a lot of opportunity for programming and recreation, stepping them up and certainly beautify them. Ritter Building, we've talked a little bit about the vertex, with the windows and things of that before. Interior painting. I think we have a good solid number for that. I had a vendor come out and quote that, and the same thing for the flooring will be the gentleman who bid on it again, who bid on the public safety building. I'm sure we'll get other vendors to bid on it. This is a forward-facing building. It's a nice building. Maintenance, keeping it upright and running good. And I think the paint, if nothing else, will sort of brighten everything up and make it a nicer environment. It's a good step to have a paint plan for all buildings, I think, going forward. Passios Building, hazardous materials. That's going to be a big part of it, getting rid of all the possible asbestos and contaminants that may or may not be in the building and where it's located. I have the Ansel system on there, quite a high number, you might notice if you compare it to the verdicts report. The issue is that Ansel system is really the original system. We don't know the last time it was tested. We don't know the last time it was operational. And it's a fire safety, life-saving device, which I think we should put some priority to. Doesn't mean that that will definitely be the number. The vendor and I agree that's a nice, safe number to get it out for bid. And any ancillary work that might come off of that, that might have to be redone or repiped, that should cover the number pretty good. Plumbing, backflow preventer system, which we don't have. If you don't know what that is, just basically means if there's a water or sewer backup, that there's going to be a flapper basically that works in the opposite way and shuts that water off so it doesn't come in and flood the inside of the building. I think it's paid dividends. Heaven hope that it doesn't happen because it's not pleasant when it does. And the sidewalk repair, I think we illustrated pretty good in the presentation, as we can see. A lot of the sidewalks, walkways, any of the areas that have a lot of high foot traffic, there's a lot of cracking, breaks, chips, holes. The grading is bad, really needs a lot of work out there, the sidewalks and walkways in general. Senior center, something that's really near and dear to my heart. A parking lot that's adjacent to the Kids Kingdom. That would be a phase of this plan for the outdoor recreation area, but we have that as the second part of the phase, that's why it's not included. I think that senior center is great, and what Sue does down there is great, so try to give them as much support as possible. And again, we really do need the space down there. If you've been down there recently, it really needs to be addressed. So forecasting going forward for this year. So I know not everybody in the room, we haven't worked together too closely, and some of you might just not know me from saying hello. So some things I took into consideration and sort of the things that are important that I bring forward to the town manager when trying to look at these projects. You know, what are our goals? When I say what are our goals, like what are the goals? What is the end use of these buildings? What do we want to do with these buildings? How expandable is the project going to be? Is it a good fit? Does it make sense? You know, should we look at putting something in as an immediate solution? And what's the cost of that and how does it bear out? And then are there any key factors to realize? And what would I say key factors? This is a building where people work out of, the Ritter Building, and it's also a forward-facing building. Meaning we have public come in and they use the building. We also have staff here. So if we have to do something to this building and renovate it, where are we going to relocate those staff and how are we going to provide the services out of that building? And then any of the solutions that I try to look at, how sustainable is it and what's the shelf life? So we can make sure we're getting a return on our investment. And when you start talking things in excess of $30,000, we want to make sure that I'm presenting things to the town manager and to the town that are going to get a good return on our investment, that we don't have to reinvest in 3, 4, 5 years, like to get some shelf life out of it. And again, I'll talk to you about vendors. Any vendor that we're going to bring in going forward, I think that it's important that they have a good deal of credibility to them and they perform well, not just for the public sector and the private sector, but for municipalities in general, that they know what it takes to work for a municipality, know that our standards are going to be high, and know that we're serving the community. So we expect a certain level of workmanship from them. That's why we want to use them. And they really need to value our relationship and all the things that we can give to them because we're a partner going forward. And constructing bid docks. I think this is something that's been done really well from what I've seen before with bids that have gone out. Something I'd like to continue to work with the assistant town manager with and some of our vendors and just get some, as much as we can drill down that language, I think it's to the town's benefit. Sometimes we might have to put some language in there that might scare away less favorable vendors, right? Because if they're out for, I don't want to say nefarious reasons, but if they're out just looking at the total cost of the contract and they don't understand the scope of the work, then they come in and they have this big scope of work, they still want to make money. So I think anything that we can do to make contractors and vendors understand everything that they need to know about the job before they bid on it is only to our benefit. Even if we don't get somebody to bid on it, we can always put it out for bid again, and we can look at the funding that we have available and do some analysis as to why we're not getting vendors to bid on this. The Brooks House, again, broken down, it's pretty straightforward. I would say the biggest thing is we just need to have a direction as to what we're gonna do with this building. I think there's some work to do there, that's for sure.
Talked about the two last items there, relocation engineering and relocation.
Well, one of the ideas that I had that for future planning, because this was forecasted out 10 years, is maybe we could get someone to buy the building and relocate the building or do something different with the building and get it offsite.
Sure. Okay.
So that's kind of what I was looking at.
And I realize they're just placeholders, but what was it a placeholder, like, what would $100,000 get us to move it, like, how far will we be talking about?
Oh, the $100,000 is just a rigging. What I call the rigger, to find out what it would cost to get it rigged up on a flatbed. Braced, insured. Just by the structure that we have from what they could see on Google Earth.
Okay.
And the age of the building.
Okay.
And if you take that out exponentially, however many years, I would say you could add a fair percentage on to that. But
Well, that's why I'm asking.
yeah,
That's something that's been discussed
Mhm.
in the past, so, I mean, it's. You don't have to shy away from it, because it has been discussed and it makes sense, it's just that,
Okay.
you need somebody who's forward thinking, who's willing to do it.
And we have town meeting approval to sell the building as well,
But we would,
Ah.
yes.
or
Yes.
to move it.
yeah, I would just say that with the Brooks House. I think these costs that are up here. I'd like to think they're as accurate as they can be. I think now getting vendors to come in that are gonna be willing to touch that for those prices. Might be tricky, because they don't know if they can open up and get into.
They're also not till 28, 29. So.
No, I'm talking about the
Previous,
2024.
Oh, okay, oh,
Sorry,
these things. Oh, yeah, okay.
So the immediate ones, and then I think we have to have the bigger conversation of what ultimately we're gonna do with the building.
And the one that's 25 are continued gutter repairs, am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, well, I set that up like that on purpose, because then after the first pile of the roof, then you do the second stage,
Okay.
which would be in 2025.
Is that building occupied right now by anybody?
Yeah, Steve Pusateri, the school's facilities director, is in that building, is his office.
He's the only one.
Yes, we have to keep the building occupied. It's an insurance issue.
Yes, yeah.
So, yep, the school facilities director has always had an office in that. building.
Yep.
Or for the recent
Well,
past.
at least he can't complain about getting interrupted since somebody else is there, so. Just gotta unplug the phone and you're all set.
Mr. Chair, a couple questions on this.
Sure, Mr. Beardmore.
So that is definitely not a picture of the Brooks House. It's it's a picture of the old funeral home. On the Brooks House, can you go back to the slide that shows the breakdown? First of all, welcome, Mr. Visconti. It's a pleasure to have you here in Lunenburg, and I apologize I'm not there in person this evening. Could you go into a little bit of detail in terms of what we're doing to the porch and the fire escape, or for that matter, for all of these items? Are we doing a full replacement or repairs, or what, based on your opinion? I know that we're referring to the Vertex report, but for me anyway, it's been several months since I cracked the Vertex report. So can you go into a little bit of detail here?
Sure, if you don't mind, we could advance a couple slides and I can show you some photos.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize we we're going further into detail. So,
We'll go past the non-Brooks house.
What we want our Brooks house to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Sorry. So the porch, obviously, when we talk about some of these repairs, they're gonna be the immediate exterior repairs to get it up in good, safe working condition. So to give you an exact scope, are they gonna tear down the entire porch? I'm hoping not, but you can see by some of these pictures that there's quite a bit of infiltration and rot. And until one comes off, we're not gonna be able to see what's underneath it. So we're gonna try to do what I would recommend when I speak to the vendor is to try to do the most extensive repairs that are the least invasive and most cost savings. That, you know, we want to keep the architectural integrity of the structure. But through years of lack of maintenance, who knows how deep it actually will go. So with the door Vertex particular, we can get, you know, there'll be some pictures, I think, of doors and windows in here next. Yeah, oh, so the Brooks roof and downspouts, they're gonna come out, they're gonna repair them, they're gonna caulk them. They're gonna make sure that there's nothing obstructing the drain lines, making sure they're stuck to the side of the house the way that they're supposed to, making sure that there's no leaks, and making sure that they're straight. And then making sure that the roof abuts them in all the areas. Same thing with the roof. The roof's gonna be fixed so that any of the dormers or anything that have water infiltration, leaks, leaky shingles, that'll all be repaired also to get that to work in conjunction. That's why the second part of it is 2025 for the 45,000, which will be more extensive roof work to be done, which at that time could require less or more money, depending on how much underlayment is damaged or if there's animal infiltration, all those type of things. Same thing with the windows. If we're gonna have to take a look when we look at these windows. Can we replace windows? Can we repair them? How damaged exactly are they? And then get a count and see what's salvageable and what isn't. But everything up into including the sash, the sill, the plates, the poles, everything's gonna need to be taken a look at. And then finding if there's any hazardous materials or ancillary work around that because of the age of the building and again, the lack of maintenance that we might have to work on.
Any questions with what he just said, Mr. Beardmore, or? can we-
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ask you a question without crawling too deep into the
No, go
weeds
ahead.
here. So on this exterior wood that's rotting and you're replacing, are you guys considering using like Trex so we never have to get into this wood rot again?
You're a wise man. This is the thing, and this wouldn't be for me to say, would I like to see more sustainable materials being used? I would. There's a couple factors with that. I would say that the average number, we won't use Trex, we won't say Trex, but any brand name is gonna be
Yeah, composite.
exponentially higher.
Yeah.
Any composite is probably gonna be 3 times the price of PT. Conservatively. So doesn't delineate this in the actual Vertex report, which is something we could discuss and have somebody come out and quote it. Because I think once we get a linear footage of what needs to be replaced, we could then do a variable cost based on PT compared to Trex or some other type of synthetic material. The other question would be, is there gonna be an issue from the EDPC with not having anything like that and doing something like that? And I think that's some of the things that I talked to the roofer about when they came up there, because a lot of these pictures, you can see it was done when it was snowing. So when we went up there and took a look at the roof and took a look at some of the downspouts, we're assuming that the infiltration is just what we can see and what we can get into. And I think that using some of those more sustainable materials is an awesome idea. But what are we gonna do with the building? So that's So if we're only gonna keep the building for 5 years, I would say that absolutely not, we don't need tracks. If we have a bigger plan for the building where we're gonna extend the life and do different things with it, then I would say that would be worth. Even looking at the cost and how that bears out over time to get the return on the investment. But I think in the immediate future, the repairs that are here in the Vertex are really just to bring it up to an acceptable level. And a safe level too, because when you start having a lot of infiltrations like that and a lot of that rot, it starts to go pretty deep and can go south pretty quick.
Yes, it can.
The front porch is not integrated with the roof, right? It's a separate, like, farmer's porch kind of thing.
Yeah, but it does have a dormer pit, I mean, it does tie in at some point, I mean, I can't tell you exactly. If we should put a gutter or a scupper there to catch some of that overflow or melt. I think that's gonna have to be one of the things that when we come out with the roofer, when we get into this project. And have them come out before the work is actually, goes out for bid, to have that discussion, because, before any of these big jobs happen. One of the things that's gonna be in the bid process is that they come out and they tour the site with myself or a representative, so we can ask these questions. Because that would be good, when you have the experts on site, and I've already had somebody come out and take a look at this. That wasn't one of the questions, but there was a lot of things to discuss at this particular site that day. But it's something I can follow up on.
Yeah, I think, you had mentioned the future use of the building, and I think that this, there may be a theme here to some of the topics we're going to discuss over the course of the day today. But, as I think of a potential scenario of selling the building to have it moved and maybe coming to an arrangement with a buyer, I'm thinking about what is likely to be preserved in a building move versus, putting a dumpster. And that front porch comes immediately to mind to me, right? Like, even if we were to replace that front porch, would that kind of structure, survive more than however long the building survives on the property? And that's only one potential scenario of events for that building, right? We could find a use for that building too.
I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, I think we agree that the point is just what's the use of the building, and then what are we gonna do with it going forward, and how much resources do we allocate, and then what type of resources based on that allocation?
The other question is on the fire escape. And this may be a better question for the fire chief. If we are not occupying the second floor of that building, are we obligated to maintain that fire escape?
I believe that you are, but that would have to be, turn that over to Chief Sullivan for his expertise, but there's still somebody that's in that building, you can't guarantee that they're not gonna go upstairs.
Right. Yeah.
So, we can definitely follow up with Chief Sullivan. He's the
Right.
expert.
I mean, we could all take a guess at the answer. I would agree with Mr. Visconti's answer. That if you have the ability inside to go upstairs and you're not physically blocking it off, then you'd have to maintain it. So, but I think the real answer, the only answer that really matters is Chief Sullivan.
Right. Okay,
And
thank you.
insurance.
All right.
Public safety building. I have a lot coming up for public safety building over the next 10 years.
So it seems.
Yes. So we'll just focus on this year's. We got our repairs, about $25,000. Hopefully we can get it done for a little less than that. There are some pretty serious roof and water infiltrations going on up there. Also, a lot of the downspouts and scuppers on flat roofs or rubber roofs have large scuppers on the end of them. They're tied into the ground. I don't know when the last time those were cleared or snaked, if ever. They need definitely be done because there's a lot of leaking, so it needs to be recocked, straightened. And get that rubber roof maintained so we can stop some of the interior leaks. It's causing a bit of rust on the inside, but as you can see, there's quite a few things that I have on the agenda.
Was
for
this
the public
that,
safety
was this
building.
that question the intent, the attention of the committee by not putting them in FY order, like top to bottom, like just jumble them all in.
No.
Throw a sobriety test.
I didn't have anything nefarious in mind with that.
I'm trying to figure out what the order might have been, but I'm at a loss, so. Anyway, next would be the K-9 building for next year, you're saying,
Yes,
okay,
we need a building
and then,
in the back for K-9 and more office space, some overflow storage, so the K-9 building would obviously need pre-planning, the design and architectural phase, and then the following year would be the construction of the building. And then in 2026, we have more roof repair, which will be pretty extensive side of the roof on the back end, which is pretty much towards the end of its usable shelf life. I mean, I'm hoping we don't have any leaks this year, but it didn't look so great up there. But there's only one pot of money and it seems to be holding up pretty well. So we're trying to be judicious with that and hopefully it holds up. And then we're gonna move right into camera system 2030. You know, I think that would be a huge deal, not only for the chiefs, but just for building safety and security, which is certainly a thing in my mind that I think we need to improve townwide with. Just from the exposure that I've had walking around, being able to walk into buildings, knowing who's in our buildings, see what's going on in our buildings. Not to mention, this is really would be for the public safety building to be able to monitor things and have not only good hardware, but good software that supports things both on the front end and back end. And has a lot of usability and expandability of interfaces with the technology, which I'm sure Chief Gamble and Chief Sullivan could probably speak to. We're gonna have some more conversations about that, but there's a lot of good products and software and technology out there now, not to mention the hardware. So it's something that I would definitely advise strongly to move into. And then continuing with our paint plan for the rest of the buildings. 2031, that building should be painted. And then the fire bay doors will need to be replaced there. They're pretty much looking a little long in the tooth as it is. But they'll be outside of their usable lifespan, so that's on the list. And then windows, they'll be outside their usable lifespan, all within you know, the energy cycle lifespan, but that's really towards the end of the usable lifespan of the windows, particularly for that building. They don't require a lot of maintenance, so it'll really just be plug and play with the new replacement window, hopefully.
Do you know what the age of that building is?
2006.
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, I would say 04, 05 would be my guess.
Well, it was 2000. Maybe it was commissioned in 2006, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, has that been paid off at this point?
No,
Next year, I believe.
I mean, the building looks really nice. I think that it's maintained pretty well. But again, not encouraging anybody to get up on the roof or look at crazy things like that, but. If you go into the building and just look at certain things, the HVAC system, the furnaces. They haven't had any maintenance, hardly any maintenance, if any. And when I say maintenance, they haven't had any preventative maintenance. So we're getting to the lifespan of these buildings now. That when things break, it's gonna break big because we haven't put any money into them. And then with the building like the public safety building, we're not shutting it down, we're not gonna not occupy it. So now we're bringing in portable boilers, portable generators, emergency fixes, depending on the time of the year. If we're not under a maintenance contract, these are really expensive, costly things to have happen. Also, depending, we're just coming out of a pandemic. I know nobody anticipated all the shortages, but in February, when it's cold and you don't have a contract with the vendor, you call them, they're gonna be servicing all the people that have contracts with them first because they have to. So that's my biggest concern is, again, making sure the safety and security of the buildings is up and running, and also making sure that we're spending money wisely so that we can extend the shelf life on these things exponentially.
I have a question about the security camera upgrade, if I may. I'm curious, with a piece of technology that I'm under the impression that security cameras and the whole systems are updating pretty rapidly along with all similar sort of tech. How do you project the cost and what a system like that might look like 7-ish years from now?
I think that's a great question. I got a number for a Bosch system.
Mhm.
And I added 15% to it.
Great, thank you.
And I just picked the Bosch system because that's what I'm most familiar with. I don't know that Chief Gamble, and I don't want to speak for Chief Gamble. I don't know that him or Chief Sullivan would be in favor of Bosch system. I don't know if our backend can support a Bosch system. I just know that it's a very expandable system and I like the recording features that it has. And it also has a good data storage for the holding cells because we're obligated by Mass General Law to keep that for a substantial amount of time that will be backed up on a cloud. Now, to your point, by that time, they could have a cloud-based system that might be able to do that. I mean, it could be like a Ring doorbell, where we're just walking around putting cameras in places, but I do want to have that on the town's radar going forward, because I don't think that it would be less money. I think that it would probably be somewhere in that ballpark from people that I've spoke with. And depending what we're using for other town systems at that time, I think there might even be other solutions out there that we could have in a service contract that would let us have that be an expandable piece that we pay. Maybe that we pay towards a proprietary software, they give us the hardware, or vice versa, because there are some systems out there like that now.
Thank you for that insight, I appreciate it.
I have a number of questions on this, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Go
Um,
ahead.
so I thought you said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I may not have heard you correctly, but I thought I heard that there has not been adequate or any maintenance to certain systems such as HVAC and that sort of thing. Can you go into a little bit more detail there, and are we going to take any corrective action on any of these issues in the budget?
Yeah, well, let me answer your question in order. I can only tell you what I'm aware of since I've been here, and when I say what I'm aware of, if I ask someone a question and I get an answer, and I'll just give you a hypothetical. Oh, I had someone come out, we think we had someone come out last year and they cleaned the furnace. So I'm gonna have about 15 questions after that. Who did it? How long were they here? Are they certified? Is it a warranty? What did they do? What did they find wrong? What did they replace? Can I have the paperwork? And a lot of those incidents, when I've asked those questions, I get bits and pieces of those questions. Subsequent to the second part of your question, which we'll get to later in the presentation, I've had vendors come out that I've worked with in the past for these systems. And they've told me, and I trust them very much, and I can see with my own eyes, that they've had very little, if any, maintenance. And you can tell just by going in and looking at a furnace and seeing how dirty the firebox is, and it hasn't been cleaned in a while. Same thing with HVAC systems. When your front end system for the BMS, which just for layman's terms, which would be the interface to your desktop or laptop that adjusts the climate remotely, hasn't been updated in 6 years, I would say that you haven't been doing a lot of maintenance on your systems. Because we pay for that service. So what are we paying for? So that's my job now, to make sure that what we're paying for is what we're getting. So just simply calling the company, call Burnell Control and saying, hey, we have a new chiller going in, Train's the back end, you guys are the front end. Is your software gonna be able to talk to Train? That's an outdated system. Okay, well, how soon can you come out and upgrade the system? And how much is it gonna cost? And then we have to discuss that cost, because what have I been paying you for all this time? So that's sort of where we're at with that.
Okay, I appreciate your illustration. Let me ask a more direct question. Are we demonstratively behind on maintenance on systems in that building? And do we have a catch-up plan?
I don't know that we have, I don't know that we're just demonstratively behind. I don't think there's a good way to categorize it. I think we do have a plan in place, which we'll get to next.
Okay,
And I would say that if we were demonstrably behind, the systems wouldn't be working adequately, which we have a new chiller going in. So obviously the HVAC, air conditioning will be ahead of schedule. And the heating system will be running and has been running. So I would say that unless it breaks down, we can be in good shape and there's nothing we shouldn't be able to handle going forward.
okay, thank you. On the pavement, I recall last year or the year before, there was an item dealing with drainage issues on the backside of that building, and the pavement was deteriorating very quickly and that sort of thing. Do we have any additional information on that? And has that issue been resolved, or do we have a path to that?
We do. I haven't been able to see any evidence that there's water infiltration in that area. I had a couple prime vendors come out, a couple that are already doing work with the town, and they gave me their opinion. They don't see any evidence of water infiltration coming through the ground. We don't see any high water spots. We don't see puddling. We don't see dampness. We don't see any of that. So at this point, there's no plan to move forward with any of that action to move that. Unless I can see a reason, or somebody can provide a reason, we can walk over and see water coming up or pavement deteriorating rapidly compared to one side than the other, because it doesn't appear that way. And that's the original pavement for that structure. I would say it's in remarkably good shape for the years that it's had. So I don't think that there's any plan going forward for that, sir.
Did we appropriate money for this now apparent non-issue?
We did, it was,
20.
well, it was a
Study, right.
study for,
Was the study done?
no,
So
That
are
was-
we, so
that was-
that goes into unexpended capital, or are we using that in other areas?
that would be available for unexpended capital at the spring town meeting.
Okay,
So my question, hold on a second, Peter, I'm gonna follow up with that, so I have to ask the question because it's hanging out there. So how did we get to a point where this was deemed a major issue, that we put study money into it, that it turned out to be not a major, not even a major issue, like not an issue at all? How did this come to our attention as a prime issue?
The previous DPW director came to the conclusion that the issues that were in the training room with the condensation and everything that was going on with the building at that time were due to drainage issues with water coming up through the foundation.
We're talking about previous, we're talking about directly previous to the current.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to interrupt your question.
no, it's okay. I'm a little bit perplexed by this, but I don't think it's one that I can resolve sitting here asking questions, or I'm not even sure what questions to ask. Let's move to the K-9 buildings, building and offices. So in previous capital planning plans and on-year requests, there have been requests for document storage room and expansion of office spaces into the second floor area that is unfinished in that building. None of them were prioritized to the level that they were funded. They've since dropped off, and we now have a new plan that calls for a K-9 building with offices. So a number of questions. Number one, when we're saying K-9 here, are we talking about the K-9 officer, or are we talking about animal control, or some combination thereof?
I think it should be, I think it's a combination.
Okay,
I mean, kennels are gonna be kennels. So however the kennel space is divided, and then the ultimate, the way that it's gonna be designed will all be in the scope of work, depending, I think, on the needs of what the chief decides that they might need for canine space, and then animal control space as well.
Okay. I mean, this isn't too far out. We're a year away from planning, and I don't think that this has been discussed publicly, to my knowledge, about animal control and using the capital plan to facilitate addressing animal control in the public safety building. By the way, I would support it. I'm just not sure that this is a conversation that's occurred. And I'm not sure that the capital planning process is necessarily where that policy decision should be vetted. Nevertheless, it's not an issue for this year. I am curious, though, where physically would we be putting this new construction?
Back by the shed.
Can you orient me to the building as I'm driving in? What direction?
Drive into the building and take a right. If you're driving down into the building, go straight into the building. Go past the fire bay doors and then go to the right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So I just got into a little bit of the scope of work for the public safety, for the roof repair. Again, the vendor will take care of everything from the downspouts, the scuppers, the straightening, any underlayment, drain clearing, removing of old materials. And we'll also get a projected maintenance plan for all the roofs in all the towns, but particularly for public safety, to have them come out quarterly and take a look and see what's going on up there. Not to say that if something big is going on, we have to address it right then, but doing it quarterly, we should have a good scope of what's going on and know if something's gonna be, hey, this is something that came out of nowhere, it's gonna cost some money. This is something that's gonna be. This is something that might not be so cost prohibitive, we should address it now.
I have just as a layperson, because this word has come up like at least 5 times. What is a scupper?
Scupper is a big, to be here from a 6-inch to a 12-inch box. It's basically just a hole that is on the side of flat roofs where it pitches to. And all your water and debris goes down, they just call them scuppers.
Okay, all right, so that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And these are some of the pictures of the public safety building that we're having issues with. And we actually have a good leak now on the fire bay side that actually went through to the fire bay side and is causing a lot on the inside and some water infiltration. So that's all going to be taken care of.
Yes,
I have a question if I may. With layman's knowledge, which is super inherently dangerous, and I understand that.
Oh, please.
I'm hearing this building is 18-ish years old. My understanding was, and I'm hearing about potential leaks in the flat roof, and my understanding was a flat rubber roof typically has a lifespan of 25 to 30 years.
Sometimes.
Okay. I'm going from my own residential experience, which I
Oh.
know is different than commercial as well, so.
So I think you're right on target with that, and I think that there's a range. There's also things mitigating factors to take into consideration. Sometimes the failure with roofs has to do with the lack of other maintenance. So not maintaining the downspouts correctly will cause ponding and water not to drain correctly and things to hold. If there's a backup on the roof and water sitting there longer, you're probably gonna have issues with that part of the roof. Does it get too much sun? Does it not get enough sun? All those little things with adhesive, and there were some, particularly with this building on the roof, there's been a lot of, I don't wanna say smaller repairs, because I don't know who did them, but people have gone up there through the years and used epoxy, caulking, roof cement, and done repairs. They definitely weren't done by a professional roofer, but the leak was stopped, but there's a danger with that. Because obviously you're just looking at where the infiltration is. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's causing the infiltration. So there could be a bad pitch in the roof that's causing the water to go through a vent stack. Which the vent stack is perfectly fine, it's just not made to hold ponding water. So now we're putting all that silicone or whatever around that roof, but we're not addressing the rest of the issues, so. That's gonna be my plan with preventive maintenance, and that's some of the issues with it.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Parks and Recreation. I think we talked about this quite a bit at the beginning. So just, again, the town beach treatment. I think that's a great plan. I'm eager to see what Solitude has for me. They were very, very professional and had a lot of good ideas about how to manage that, but it's really something I think the community is known for, and I'm excited to see what they can do for us. The McNally Park design, that'll be an exciting project, and Marshall Park is closer and closer. The Parks Commission's done a great job with that. I think not only finding a good vendor in Wola, they've been a good partner with us and certainly been very receptive to answering questions and helping with the design plan, and just using them for some feedback and a sounding board to see what they think about the plan. And now we have this next stage with Phyllis and Roy starting for the wetland infiltration. I think it's everything's on track. And then after that, I'm hoping Wallace Park, we can address the basketball courts in 2028.
I haven't seen anything about the McNally Park design. What are they looking to do with McNally Park?
Basically just the fields, the grading.
So just not a redesign of the park, but
Possibly reconfiguration.
Yeah, reconfiguring the layout.
okay, so there is okay.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Petermore,
is the Marshall Park engineering request redundant or the same as the request for funds that's on the special town meeting warrant?
No, I don't think so. I think that the engineering request is so that we can try to get as close of the engineering cost as possible to be as accurate we can with the planning phases coming out.
So the answer would be yes,
Yes.
because the article on special town meeting would be for the complete the schematic and the design development,
to the point where we can have bid
Right,
documents, right?
right? So
Yes.
this is,
Ties into that.
right,
So if that article were to pass, this would be withdrawn?
Yes,
yes.
On McNally Park, what's the plan for the building on that property?
It's going to be removed, demolition, and the sign is going to be saved and given to the McNally family.
Okay. When is that building going to be removed?
I can't give you an exact date. It'll be removed by the start of next spring.
Okay.
Hopefully we can have it done before December, but if not, the vendor that I've secured will have it done before next spring.
Okay. What about the town beach building that is not being addressed in the capital plan?
That's not part of the capital plan, it's part of the operational budget. It's going out for bid if it's not already out for rebid. It was already out for bid, I'm sorry, I don't know if it was posted again, but the documents invitation for bid was redraft with the assistant town manager, and she got that ready to go, and it will be posted for bid.
Okay. And suffice to say, that's going to be covered in your FY23 budget?
Based on
Town
bids.
beach, based on if somebody bids on it or not.
Fair point. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Again, Vellum Town Beach, I talked about this enough. I think it, all the good points of it are up there. I think it'll be great. I think it'll add a lot of longevity to the beach. And it's something that, you know, for the money. And once we get into it, I'd be interested to see how long we can go before treatments, and so would the Solitude. So they've been a good partner for us so far.
Does that lake or pond, or whatever you wanna call it, does that entire area belong to the town?
The beach?
The
The whole lake,
Whole lake,
the lake has part of it is like a corner of it is in Leominster.
Hmm.
okay. So,
Leominster is the one that has the boat launch. for instance.
oh, okay, right, so we would basically just be maintaining our part of the lake?
We're
This
just
is just
maintaining
the
the
beach.
beach.
Just
The
the
beach,
beach.
just the
Just the beach.
Yeah.
Not the whole lake.
Okay,
The treatment isn't for the whole lake, just the
Okay.
beach area.
okay, so basically you can go swimming and not having all the
Waves on
squishy
it.
stuff on.
Yeah, that's well said.
That's gonna be in all the brochures.
That's well said, no squishy stuff.
Okay,
Yeah, I cringed, thank you, with that. Feeling that through memory.
Teen center, this is what I project going forward for the teen center, buildings in pretty good shape now. Windows are gonna be coming towards the end of their usable life in 2027. Start to look at it 2028. The roof, that roof is not in good shape either. We're really stretching it, getting out to 2030. There's not any signs of infiltration, but I mean, you can just look at it and see how worn it is, particularly if you get up on the back edge. Gutters are in good shape, downspouts are in pretty good shape, but the roof itself has a lot of wear on it. You know, hopefully we don't have to address it sooner, but
It's just an asphalt shingle roof.
there's a couple parts that have,
I'm just looking at the pricing for asphalt shingle roof for what really is just a home-sized building.
underlayment, plywood, we have to do all the trim boards, downspouts.
Okay.
It's
would
Pushed
you,
out quite a few years.
would you consider metal roofing versus asphalt?
I think that's a great option. It's not an option that I was able to get, I don't wanna say, I couldn't get a price on that because the vendor that I have it's not something that they do at that scale, so I didn't have a chance to ask them for that. I mean, it's not in the immediate scope of work. I think it would be something to entertain when we get closer. Again, that's probably a 4-to-1 cost compared to an architectural, or not even an architectural shingle, so. I mean, you're really talking about pushing that price up, and I only used a multiple of 15% on this. So, if you wanna take 15% off of that, that would be pretty close to today's dollars, depending on labor, prevailing wage, whatever our prevailing wages at the time. Starting to talk some big numbers for a roof like that. No problem. The Ritter building. My favorite.
Well, you really made sure we touched all these buildings 3 times so far. Okay,
Too much, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay.
Ritter building, painting, flooring we discussed. I would recommend some type of light proof or carpet flooring in here. Foundation repair in 2025. Covering the outside stairwell, I have that over here. It's exposed. It's really is a primary egress and entrance point for the staff that work upstairs. And it would be used in an emergency too. I think in inclement weather, I can only imagine that gets quite a bit of ice. Roof and gutter repairs that are in the vertex. Again, we used a multiple on that. That's more of an actual number. We just use a multiple of 8% with inflation. HVAC in this building, I think that's gonna be part of a bigger discussion as to what we're gonna do with this building and what the use of this building is. The engineering phase will probably be at least $25,000. And then the type of HVAC system, what we're gonna put in, is it gonna be a green system? Is it gonna be an expandable system? Is it gonna be a system that can go up on the roof? Depending what we do with the roof. These are all questions. I think that's a safe number to do anything with the VCM and air handling units. Getting rid of these mini splits, which are quite ineffective, to be perfectly honest. And also the heating system in this building, just from somebody that sits here when it was cold, not even super cold. Definitely not efficient. Definitely has a lot of dead spots and it's gonna require a good expandable system, particularly if we're talking about expanding services out of this building and having smaller offices or bigger offices or more compartmentalized space instead of some of these big grand spaces. Electrical upgrade, obviously we'll be doing all the extra work. Engineering phase for that, and then the actual implementation. quite a bit of money for this building. And just go through the scope of work, whatever we talked about. So the flooring, this is all in the vertex, and we're all sitting here, so we know what the building looks like. I think the floor is well circulated, usable lifespan. Public library. I think this building is in very good shape. All of my cost projections here are pushing it out towards the end of the fiscal plan. Again, keeping with the paint plan. We have a planning phase for HVAC and then HVAC and construction. From what Muir tells me, the building doesn't cool and heat very well at all. You know, I really wasn't with the town and the height of cooling season, so I can't speak to, you know, I can tell you that it's not pushing a lot of VCM over there. And they're probably not the most efficient things. I can also tell you that to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a lot of maintenance on those. So balancing and maintaining the system is a big thing with systems, particularly on a roof. They require a lot of maintenance. The flooring of the library is in good shape. It's going to need to be addressed. It's going to be easily reaching its shelf life. You know, within the next 5 years easily. Painting,
Didn't we just replace the floor, the carpeting in the library?
Yes, that's going out to 33
Okay. But we just replaced it in the last couple of years.
last year.
Sorry.
That's not wall to wall in that whole building. There's tile flooring in that building too, I believe, right?
yep, there's VCT, there's tile, there's a lot of different types of flooring. And then we have the exterior painting. Again, the entire building doesn't need to be painted. There's parts that won't need to be painted, but exterior paint, very important for the life and look and maintenance of the building. Roof repairs and replacement. You can see that I have the HVAC before the roof. Because we're gonna need to know what we want to do with the HVAC before we do anything with our roof. And see how that pans out. The big roof, I think to George's point, metal roof might be a good way to go. Particularly for the public library, but it's a big flat roof with a lot of surface area, so it's a lot to cover. And then windows, 2 separate phases. Again, those will be well over their usable shelf life.
I'm sure you've come to the conclusion, historically, the buildings that we built in this town, the weak point has always been HVAC, and almost every building from their inauguration had HVAC problems, a lot of balancing problems, a lot of design problems. It's almost like we invented HVAC in 2000 and nobody knew how to put them in, and they haven't gotten terribly much better in the buildings we put in since. So with the exception maybe of the middle school, high school, which I think we did not have those issues. It was the first building I can remember being built that did not have initial problems in that area.
Eagle House. So we've talked about the parking lot. We have a hot water system upgrade that it's in dire need over there. In 2026. We have the foundation in the Vertex report. 35,000. In 2027, roofing. We're already doing a repair on the roof this year. So the entire back end and front end of the roof is in very poor condition. There's a lot of water infiltration, there's a lot of staining. The roof is gonna need to be addressed and pretty short order over there. There's already been several leaks, and what we're fixing this week is fixing a previous repair that wasn't done correctly, which caused more infiltration, and subsequent is gonna be much more expensive. First level flooring replacement. Again, I'd recommend something expandable and upgradable. Second floor interior paint, keeping with our paint plan, and then the first floor interior paint. We have the electrical upgrade. And again, HVAC design and HVAC replacement and installation. That's a smaller building. I think that we might have to do again, something on the roof. for air handling units to get, it's a very compartmentalized, smaller building, but something expandable to be able to push air and move air the way we want to. I'd probably recommend something on top. That's the way it was priced out. Depending how it goes out for bid and who bids on it, there might be some different solutions out there, some green energy alternatives with heat pumps. And things to that nature when the time comes for that. It would be something that I'd definitely be interested in seeing what comes back when that goes out for bid. But HVAC in that building too is, Sue has a lot of challenges in that building, particularly with the population. Want to make sure we're moving air, cleaning air, good filtration system. And again, I know I've said this, but it's a very compartmentalized building. So to be able to push that air and get a good balance, and I think that's a lot of the issues, not to go back to public safety, because I know it's been taking a long time. The public safety building, when I had the vendor come out, and we'll get to the slide, there's one thermostat that's in Chief Gamel's office. So if the thermostat's in Chief Gamel's office, his office is going to be the temperature that he thinks is appropriate. But other parts of the building aren't going to be the right temperature. Particularly with balancing the system can cause a lot of condensation, which might have been some of the issues with the condensation in that particular room. And I've talked to the chief and the town manager about this extensively. This isn't just my opinion. These are flooring people, HVAC people, and heating people that I've had come out. And the collective thought with this is that once the new system's in, the front end system's upgraded, the thermostats are calibrated, and the system's cleaned, it should make a big difference on how the air is moved and distributed in that building. And that's not just with that building, that's with every building.
We just approved air conditioning for the Eagle House, didn't we?
Yeah, it's on there, the HVAC.
No. This past year, didn't we have an appropriation on the capital plan for air conditioning for the Eagle House?
The condensers.
The condenser upgrades. Yeah, yes, that's on there, yes.
Has that work been done?
No,
No,
Is it going to be done?
well, I think that there's gonna be some questions to see if we can get that work done for that amount of money. For the money that was appropriated for it, in conjunction with some other work that has to be done with that.
Okay, so I'm not a facilities guy. I know nothing about the building trades. So can you talk me through? We just appropriated a sum of money for condenser upgrades. You're talking about HVAC replacements. I'm assuming we're talking about heating and cooling
That's correct.
6 years from now. Can you help? I'm at a loss here. Like, are we gonna spend the
Well, let
money
me try to help you.
or
Let me try
not? or
to,
what?
let me try to help clarify that for you. So in order to get the condenser upgrade done for the amount of money, I don't know that it would be feasible. So before that goes out for bid, and we have somebody come in and just bid on it to try to take the money, I'd like to have vendors come out and see what the objective and expandability of the system is based on the money that was appropriated, to see what can be done. Because the expandability of the units that you have there now are very limited, including the electrical system. So it's not just a matter of putting in the condenser and saying that that's gonna take care of the issue. The condenser will pull down to whatever temperature that it can. You might also freeze it up because you're not moving air. You might not have enough electricity to pull it. I haven't been able to get a vendor to come out so that we could articulate that in a bid to try to get the best vendor. Is it in the scope of what I want to work on? Absolutely, but I've only had a limited time to work on these things, and that's not one of the things that I've had a chance to get to
No,
thus far.
And with all due respect, I'm not throwing this at you personally. I'm just.
I'm not taking that way. I'm just trying
You're
to
stepping into a process here that some of us have been around for a bit, and it came as a surprise to me that we may be throwing good money at bad here if we have a systemic HVAC ventilation problem in that building.
Well, respectfully, I would say that that's what would be done if we just went out and spent that money because it was appropriated and not take a hard look at how we're gonna appropriate it and the expandability of it. The HVAC system that I'm talking about in 2028 is an all-encompassing system. Heat, HVAC, possibly heat pumps. These condenser units would be for a fraction of the building to improve on the air circulation in those parts of the building, because the building is so compartmentalized. So I definitely understand what you're asking, but this goes back to what I said before about having vendors come out, meeting with the vendor, having the right scope of work put together before it goes out for bid, and then making sure that we're spending that money correctly to get our return on our investment.
To your point, Peter, and I think certainly from what Paul has just said, I think that having never had a facilities director before was a hindrance to our ability to necessarily wisely spend money for systems, because we didn't have somebody on staff who knew them. And therefore, I think we did potentially spend money that was not best spent because we didn't have somebody who knew the trade. So I think that having a facilities director, both at the school and that town side now, is going to make a huge difference in these kind of costs.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on this, Tom. I think though that, you know, what we've just identified though, between this issue and the issue with the backside of the public safety building and those sorts of things. I mean, the good news is that in those two circumstances, we haven't spent the money yet, right? The bad news is, okay, we have capital appropriated. Well, what are we gonna do with that capital? And are we gonna take that capital and put it to part A of a longer term plan, reclassify that capital, or just turn it back in as unexpended capital?
I think the answer is unknown at this point, but I think that it was very heartening to know that, you know, the facilities director is not looking to spend it. He's looking, if we're not addressing the problem, he's not going to spend it just because it was appropriate. I think he made that clear, and I think that's what we can, and what the best plan is and how to fund that. Do we use this to a larger article, or do we use it for another plan and we come back to this when we need it? The particulars are unknown at this point.
Fair enough. Oh, so one other question on the Eagle House. The parking lot, where are we putting this parking lot?
Where the playground is.
Next,
I mean, that,
Between them,
go ahead.
between the Eagle House and Kids Kingdom.
Yeah.
So it'd be an access point to the ADA patio as well. And provide additional off-street parking. This was a project that was in the capital plan last year, but not for fiscal 23.
Yeah, so last year, this issue was somewhat hindered by the skate park discussion and, you know, lack of a decision on the location of the skate park. And I think we eventually came around to it, but later in the process. This year, we're in the midst of a municipal building discussion that is not resolved.
That's
And,
not the same piece of land you're thinking of.
Sure it is. It's between the
Oh.
TC Passios and between the
Oh,
TC
no,
the
Passios.
other
between-
side.
not between
The other
King's
side.
Kingdom and Passio, between Kids Kingdom and the
Eagle.
Eagle House itself.
Oh, okay. All right. I apologize. Is there, okay. So how many parking spaces are we gonna get in that space?
I can't tell you that, sir. It would have to be based on the square footage and how big we want to lay out the space. That's really the conversation for, once we decide the best layout of the parking lot, and then the pitch and the roll of the parking lot, the water drainage points, and then how we're gonna line the parking lot for access egress. And I'd also like to see how the patio comes out, because that might also decide where we're gonna have the parking spaces lined up and how I'm gonna line the parking lot. I can't tell you how many.
And the
spaces.
design is actually being worked on right now by McCarty
Yes.
within the
yeah.
budget.
The design for the patio.
The design for the parking lot
And the patio.
and two separate projects.
Is this gonna include lighting?
Okay, wait,
There were-
okay, wait a minute. Wait. Can you say that again, Madam Town Manager? What's funding what relative to design for the patio and the parking lot?
The design for the patio is being funded through the earmark that we received from the state. The design for the parking lot is funded through the budget,
Through whose budget?
through the facilities budget.
Okay. And will that design be complete at some point where we have a better understanding of what this parking lot is gonna look like and how many vehicles it's gonna serve?
McCarty is working on that phase now. And I was just alluding to, once we get to that, it's fine. See how the parking spaces will lay out at that point.
Okay, but my concern here is we're being asked to, the charge of this committee is to prioritize items that are being proposed for the capital plan. And some of what goes into this deliberation, this consideration is return on investment. So if we're spending $150,000 for 10 parking spaces or $150,000 for 40 parking spaces, there's a big difference, in terms of what the return on the investment is. And right now, it just sounds like somebody put their finger in the air and said $150,000. But please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I don't think somebody put their finger in the air and based it on $150,000. The price of the parking lot is based upon the construction, the grading, the substrate and the materials based on petroleum products, depending, again, the layout of the spaces, how wide the spaces are.
But you don't have any of that information yet. You just told me that the design is underway.
But we still have an approximate square footage of where the lot space would be.
Okay.
And what size is that?
I don't know off the top of my head, sorry.
But if you can get us that.
That's what McCarty's working on.
Okay.
When will the engineering firm have their work done on this?
I think we're hoping for this week. Our front end of next week.
So you could either come back or send us additional detail on this.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Town hall. Working on the vertex, the interior painting. It's quite a bit of work. That includes doors, sills, sashes, overhangs, baseboards, quite a bit of work. Software. We're tracking, upgraded our software, so this is something I think has a lot of value to bring some, not only track where we're spending our money, but track where we're fixing things, when the last time something was fixed, when something does need to be maintained, why wasn't it maintained? And there's a lot of different softwares out there, all for around the same price, depending on the licenses and how long we want to get involved with them, but that's something we want to work on SUSE IT with in the future to try to drill something down. And I think it'd be advantageous for the town to have it.
But this is not something particular to town hall. This would be overarching to all of them.
Correct, they put it on the town hall because
Fair enough. I just want to make. Okay.
floor vertex. Doing the floors over at the town hall. No, not that much of a surface area except for the big town meeting room, but there's gonna be a lot of work with underlayment that those subfloors are in bad shape. We have some foundation work for 27 and 28. And then AI phone for security and then AI phone for install. So the AI phone basically ties into a bigger goal that I have for all of our buildings, whether it be safety and security, restricting keys, making sure that we have the staff that need access at certain times of days have it. People that need to get into our buildings at certain times of the day can, that we know who's going into our buildings. Also to get rid of some of the physical keys that we have and bring us up into sort of a little bit more modern technology with that. And then the actual install, the Airphone, AI phone install is gonna be, you know, quite costly. That is based on 15% increase. And there's several different vendors that have an AI phone. Again, something I've been trying to work on, Sousa IT with, they've been helpful. JCI is a company that I know that I've worked with in the past that does it. And they're sort of a one-stop shop solution. Not only would it get cost aligned for a lot of other things, but it's gonna give us a lot of hot data and some information back to, and this will all tie into what the chiefs may not want to use for the camera systems, because a lot of these AI phones and key fob access ties into camera systems and tracking, and there's just a lot of stuff you can do with it, be the software and the hardware. I would definitely recommend some type of all-inclusive system with a vendor that's going to give you the hardware and the upgradable software in a service contract with a prorated rate for coming out and servicing it, because again, technology expands and evolves so quickly. I really think that that's something that we need to have in the contract and be very advantageous for the town, particularly for alarm systems and maintaining our buildings. The meeting room renovation, that meeting room needs a lot of work that's, you know, there's a lot of detail and fine work in there. Two of the vendors that I walked through were really thought there was a lot of work to do and it could be quite costly, but I think we got some good solid numbers on that. The electrical system, that needs an upgrade, and I think that there's already been a lot of good work done by DeVicus Electrical in the basement, getting just a ton of wire in that area cleaned up and streamlined, and I think there's more to do. And again, expandability of what we're gonna do in that building, just from an IT standpoint and an electrical standpoint, anything that we do. I think we're gonna need expanded electrical service going forward. And interior door maintenance. We have several doors, locks, keys, don't close right, sweeps, hardware, door jams, sills, all through the entire building. And that's the long-term plan for the doors. Push that out as far as I could, because it's quite costly.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Brennan.
Where we're talking about security and access systems and cameras and everything, is there a plan or intent for these to be integrated with the systems the schools are looking at as well, or are these currently independent notions?
I haven't had any discussions with the school about that. So for my intent, it would be independent for now. I wouldn't say that it has to be mutually exclusive. I think we could definitely work together with the school, although the school facilities and our facilities sort of run, well, they run independently.
Mhm.
And I think the school's new needs are really quite different than our needs in some cases, but to your point, I mean, keyless entry is keyless entry. I just don't know the expandability of the fobs, the access that they need over there, just the sheer amount of staff that they have compared to our staff, and then limiting that. But to your point, that's why I think getting a company that has a lot of good proprietary software that's expandable, we might be able to get a one service solution that could have under the same umbrella, say 2 solutions for our town, which would be nice.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
One thought there is that the schools are looking to move this year on those systems, and you know, we're looking at 27, 28 further out with the cameras and new systems for public safety. So I think that we'll learn something from the schools, and we could probably make decisions based on those learnings for the rest of the town that may or may not, you know, ultimately integrate.
I have another question, if I may. I hear a lot about electrical system upgrades to handle increased load. And again, my knowledge is generally residential based and very layman's, so I'm aware there's going to be gaps in it. My understanding was that overall with the increase in more energy efficient lighting, appliances, tools, heating, cooling systems, that on average, electrical use has been going down rather than up. I'm not, you're the expert, so I believe you when you say these systems need to be able to carry more load. I would just love to hear more about that so I could understand.
I'm not an electrical engineer, but when I talk about more load, I'm talking about more capacity and expandability in the existing circuits. So if we only have 15 circuits or 16 circuits in this building, and we need 3 more workstations upstairs, we're probably gonna need a couple more circuits, because if we overload circuits, it's gonna shut down machines. Often in this building, we have a few power outages a week, and it kicks back on. Also, the different systems that we put in will be more energy efficient, but the initial power draw is quite significant. So you'll notice that, like for a home generator system, they'll ask you oftentimes, well, what do you want to run if the power goes out? Most people will say, well, I want to be able to run the basics, the refrigerator, I want to have a light on in the bedroom, I want to watch TV, and I want to run my heating system. Well, that's great. You can get away with like a 5,500 watt generator for that, because there's no pull on any of those things. Meaning when I say pull, you click your furnace and it has a little ignition, that's it. It's running. The gas is coming out. You turn on a TV, that's not a lot, but now to build on that, run a microwave and an air conditioning condenser. You're gonna go up to like 25,000 watts, depending if you have 2 big central air conditioning condensers right away, not to mention a microwave. So anything that I talk about for these buildings, if we're gonna put an air handling unit or any type of big condensers or heat furnaces with heat pumps, we're gonna need expanded electrical upgrades through the building, particularly if we're gonna continue to use them for office space and different expandabilities for other technologies that we might want to add down the line.
So additional circuits is certainly big, the initial feed off the pole.
Yeah. The panels,
So, whether it's a 100 amp service, 200 amp service or whatever, that's big.
480.
And then, of course, especially when you get to the town hall in this building, just the wiring itself won't meet standard code. So,
All wonderful points. You've taken several disparate pieces in my mind and connected them together beautifully. Thank you.
My pleasure. Passios building has its materials verdicts. There's gonna be quite a bit to that, so that's the initial 50,000 to have them come in, do the assessment. The next phase of that would be the actual abatement. We have the Ansel system, which we talked about, the backflow preventer and the sidewalk, so that's just a little bit further breakdown. Those are just pictures, so you can see different elevations, cracks, runs. There's a lot of sidewalk, a lot of places to ambulate over there and walk around, handicap access ramps. All things that we need that need maintenance. Backflow preventer, and those are some pictures of the asbestos piping that we have throughout the building. You have VCT tile that has asbestos in it. A lot of the code base over there and some of the wall materials has asbestos in it. And hopefully they don't find any more than what's already been identified, but I venture to say that it's a good chance that they will. And this is just my little thing at the end, return on investment. To some points that were brought up earlier, it's just a good use of funding, understanding our goals, having a clear sight direction on how to get there, trying to maximize our cost savings. We talked about the software a little bit, preventive maintenance. I have had several companies come out, whether it be Train, Zones, Mechanical, our generators are all set up now on a preventive maintenance contract where they're gonna come out every quarter, test them, change the oil, check the engine block heater, do a load test. And if something goes wrong, the chiefs already have Craft Power's phone number. They'll be here within 2 hours. And if they can't fix it, they'll bring a portable generator and set it up. Usability, maximizing technology. I'm big on technology and software. And that's how I'd like to see us move forward in that direction. And I don't know how exactly this point came up, but I think the town manager and I have a good working relationship. Just because money's appropriated, I don't know that, just because the money's appropriated doesn't mean that we are gonna spend it haphazardly. I think we're gonna take a hard look and make sure that we're gonna get a good return on our investment. And that the vendor that's doing the work can do the work that we need them to do, not just for a couple of years, but moving us into the future. So that we don't have to redo it in a few years, right? That's important. Thank you for your time. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I'm gonna stop sharing. First of all, I want to thank you for a very thorough presentation.
It was long, I apologize, a lot of slides.
Well, a lot of questions, a lot of. But anyway, for a 10-weeker, that was very thorough.
Oh, thank you.
So I will open it up to the committee. If anybody has any questions that they didn't ask, or further ones that came to their mind, this is the time.
I can answer that question about age of the public safety building. It was built in 2004, and the last year of payment is actually this year.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you for that information. So what the parking lot at the Eagle House is something we definitely need more information on. Especially since you're asking for the money for the parking, but we have no idea what the parking lot looks like. Except that a placeholder number. Now, I realize you got to that number by square footage and asphalt pricing and all the things you said. But in order for us to evaluate that, we need a little more about the design. So as soon as you get the design, that will certainly enter into our conversation.
Certainly.
Was there anything else that anybody in the committee of the four of us asked that we want to make sure Mr. Visconti gets back to us on? No. Excellent.
That was great.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate your consideration. I appreciate the questions. And I hope we can get to where we need to go and get all these projects taken care of and
So,
hopefully relatively short order. I don't know
Yeah.
if it will be short order.
no, I appreciate the long forecast too. That was actually very good. Nice to see.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Where do you sit in this building?
I do, yeah. Right down the hallway. I won't take you down there now because we're under construction with the kitchen, but you'll have to come see the kitchen after.
Cool.
Monty Tech is doing that project.
Yeah. good.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the discussion of the capital planning request. Does anybody have further discussion that they'd like to talk about this or anything that we've talked about thus far? I mean, our goal, of course, our last presentation is going to be Wednesday from police, fire, and DPW. And then we can in earnest start looking at discussing preliminary ideas about how to prioritize. But we do have the item on the agenda, so I will open it up in case anybody wants to have any discussion at this point.
Mr. Chair, can you elaborate on how you think things are going to go following our next meeting? Do you anticipate that we will have a meeting to deliberate before we submit our individual prioritized lists, or how do you see that?
That would be my intent. Yeah, my intention would be to have a public meeting where we would talk about all the planning requests that were presented to us and have an open discussion about where people felt they stood before we had individual ratings. And then once we came back after that with individual ratings, we would tally those totals and see where they land, and then see on the final discussion if anybody wants to lobby hard for moving things up and down that finalized list. That would be the goal. That makes sense, Mr. Goodmore?
Yep, I'm just trying to set my own expectations. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it, no problem. Thank you, Paul.
I had a question after the presentation from the school superintendent, but didn't hit me until later on.
Okay, that's well,
Was there a discussion, you know, the film they want to put on those windows?
Yep.
Is there a product life expectancy of that film?
well, there's a product life expectancy of everything, I'm sure, but I don't know that it's anything. I don't know what it would be, probably in the, you know, the life of the window, probably, at least. It's a physical barrier, so what it's doing is creating a physical structure to hold together
Right,
the window. So I would imagine, and I don't know this for a fact, and we can certainly ask that of the facilities director, of the school facilities director, what that is, but I would assume it would be, my guess would be at least the lifetime of the window.
I would love that information just because I'm thinking it sounds like, I haven't researched it yet. It's on my own personal docket, but it sounds like a polymer product and it is likely engineered to take a beating from UV and everything else, given that it's on windows, but I'd love to know if that is, I mean, are we talking about a product that has to be replaced over 10 years after 10 years because the polymer or whatever is made of itself becomes brittle, or is it, you know, it doesn't.
So this is where I would ask that, instead of channeling through them through the chair and having the chair write them, if you.
can I reach out to him?
Absolutely, but what I'd like you to do is send the school and, you know, whether it's a superintendent or their facilities director, but CC the rest of the committee and the town manager. Just for that you're sent it, and then we will not discuss it on, email, but at least, you know, everybody will see what your question is, and then at the next open meeting, we can discuss the
Mhm.
answer.
Okay,
That would be the
yeah,
easiest.
I mean, my assumption, this is a one and done kind of a solution, but
Right, and I got that impression too, but we should get that. We should, instead of guessing, we should know.
Okay.
All the people who are gonna be presenting on Wednesday have presented they've already submitted their proposals or their presentation, so I have those all on my laptop for the next meeting. Which again, action items, well, I'm getting ahead. Any other discussion of planning requests at this point? Okay, we have the approval of minutes of September 26, 2022. Did everybody get them and read them?
Yes.
Anybody have any amendments or changes? Otherwise, I would accept the motion regarding those minutes.
I would move that we approve the minutes from the meeting on September 26, 2022.
Do I have a second?
second,
Okay, any further discussion? Since we have a remote member, we'll do a roll call vote. So all those in favor of the motion, Mr. Brenner,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
aye,
Mr. Beardmore,
Aye.
and I for myself. And I believe Amanda, who's taking our minutes here, is going, with that approval, we'll submit them to the town clerk with that vote. That is not correct, Amanda, please let me,
That's true. I will do that.
I appreciate it, thank you.
You're welcome.
And when you send them to her, please CC the chair so that I have a listing that you sent them to her.
You got it.
Excellent, thank you. Action items for next meeting. So again, it's going to be November 9th, which is in 2 days from now, right in this same room. Is there any special action items that anybody would like to see at that meeting? We probably, if we consider what the next meeting is, we have not.
We did not go further than that.
Right, so. Let's look at calendars here.
Yeah, so I was just looking at that, Mr. Chair. It looks as if the planning board and the school committee, we ran into this problem with November because of the way the days fell, with the month starting on a Tuesday. I
Yeah.
believe the planning board and the school committee are meeting next week. And the following week is Thanksgiving. So I think our best bet is for a meeting on the 21st. which is Thanksgiving week, but
Yeah, but that's, yeah, I mean. The turkey it takes some time to cook, so.
yes.
That's a Monday. I'm okay with Monday, the 21st. Is everybody else okay with Monday, the 21st?
I won't be available.
Okay,
I am comfortable with that date.
Mr. Martin,
I think so, yeah.
okay, so, and you can't be here even remotely, you're away. Okay, that's fine. So we can have that'll be our open discussion amongst the members. And then on Wednesday, in 2 days, let's look at maybe what the next meeting is. When do we have to have this completed by our work before Christmas, obviously?
So submitted to me by the beginning of January, finalized.
Okay, so let's try to finish it. Yeah, okay, so we should have time. So if we do it on the 21st and then we try the next week after Thanksgiving and they're basically near that first week of December, as long as we finish by, let's say, December. What is? Let's see what December brings us here. So if we finish it by the week of ending of December 16th would be good. That would leave us early the next week if we needed to, on let's say the 19th, but if we can get it done by then, let's say no later than the 19th, we have the finalized list to submit to the town manager. Does everybody think that's doable?
I think so.
Okay, good. All right, so confirm subsequent capital planning meeting. So the next one is, like I said, this Wednesday, November 9th, 6 o'clock right here again. And then I will set up and we'll confirm on Wednesday, the meeting of the 21st on that Monday, and take it from there. Any public comment, final public comment from the capital planning committee members? Any public comment from the public? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn.
Second,
Second,
all those in favor, Mr. Beardmore,
Aye.
Mr. Brenner,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
aye.
and an aye for myself. Good night, everyone, and we will see you on Wednesday evening.
Night.
You-